The chairman and executives, in conjunction with some senior members of the unit, organized a press conference today, 20th June 2022, where the predicament facing sellers, that's oil marketers, was discussed regarding current price of PMS here in Nigeria at private depots. It was discussed that with the current price, there is no way private distributors can sell less than 180 naira per litre. We're selling at 165 right now. The conference then concluded with members being advised to sell at a sustainable price within their environment. Can they do that? All right, let's move from fuel over to agriculture. Industrial manufacturing in Nigeria is considered as one of the most difficult ventures for investors on the back of challenges that ranges from energy to infrastructure and last of all, ease of doing business. However, a few investors are bracing the odds and placing millions of naira on the table to create industries in the real sector of the economy. A few days ago, a new rice mill located in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, was commissioned as part of the country's Agro-Allied industrial sector. Paul Alaje, who is a senior economist at SPM Professional, is joining us now from our Abuja studios, where the concession took place, to provide more insight into mixing macroeconomic theories with real boots-on-the-ground agro-processing. And we like that. A good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for being on the show. What is the learning curve for you as you step into real Agro-Allied production?
Well, thank you so very much for having me, and good evening. For me, I now understand that there is a lot of difference, even though theory, microeconomic theory, will provide the guide, will show you the road or provide you with the roadmap to getting into the real sector. But the real job is in the real sector. When you participate in the real sector, you will see the others, which includes perhaps some of the constraints that producers or manufacturers we face, starting from raising funds. We bank be there to support, and if they would support, what are the risks they are willing to bear? Apart from those, you also have to deal with a lot of government agency, in this case, custom. When it comes to arrival of goods, you have to take some steps in getting your pre-arrival assessment from custom. When the good come eventually, somebody may wake up and say, no, they want to add more bills to you. Where do you run to? There is still no platform for those who might be aggrieved or who think that the right decision is not being taken, or they have not done proper review regarding what their charges should be. Delay at the ports, paying for demorages, paying terminal charges and so on and so forth, are the realities that if one is not careful, you might have your good at the port almost forever. And each day, you are going to be paying terminal charges, and you're also going to be paying for that container warehousing your good. A lot that after that, you'd have to deal with our roads. What you take Lagos-Ibadan, Lagos-Abuja for a day or two, you might end up taking 2 weeks because the roads are bad. The articulated vehicle may break down many times, but eventually, once it gets to your destination, then you have to deal with it. So these are a bit of concern. But also, it's also a good thing that manufacturing is taking place and we're having more in Nigeria, because some of the concerns we have is that most of the job people get are not quality enough. And if the job is not quality, you are not going to get quality pay. If you are not getting quality pay, then you will say, well, although you are employed, but you're underemployed for the skill you have, the money you are getting. And it's also a whole lot of things. And I hope that more persons, more organizations will consider the opportunity in terms of revenue and in terms of others that they need to scale. I think most people are concerned more about scaling the others. And I can tell you, one of the important other that many manufacturers are scaling or are thinking about scaling today is availability of energy. Energy for industry is different from buying PMS and putting in your generator at home when power is suddenly not there. You have to deal with diesel. As at today's price, about 800 naira a litre. For a medium-sized organization, you have to buy about 1,000 or 2,000 liters per day for production. Where are we going to make how are you going to recover it? Where are we making recovery from? You have to add it to your cost. So for the good we produce, suddenly you see that cement producers, flour producers are saying this is their new rate, because the cost of freight from India, from China, from America has doubled since COVID. So when people see new rates in the market and say, oh, why? Things are increasing. all of this is what is making, are things that are making our inflation figures to increase, imported inflation. We also have domestic reasons, urban inflation, and so on and so forth. I think policymakers should sit down and consider the issues one after the other so that we can look at areas we can start solving these concerns one at a time.
Very in-depth there. Thank you so much, Mr. Alaje. Now, how do you think the macroeconomics can be aligned to promote and make industrial production an easy process?
I think it can be aligned, and the way I think is that government should focus on regulation, and government should focus one industry, one sector, I beg your pardon, at a time. I am in agro-processing, and as someone who is an economist and in professional service at the same time with agro-processing, what we could do is that you look at the entire value chain, from farmers to the markets where the food is consumed. What are the things government can do? Because you have to look at it in reality of how it will impact the GDP. Our GDP figures, even though we are seeing GDP growth rate, but is it sufficient to provide the prosperity to our people as they want it? Again, we have huge unemployment figure. The last report is about 33.1% of the labor force. We have high inflation at over 17%, getting towards 18%. And if you hit 18%, that will be the third time in about 5-7 years that we have seen 18% inflation figures. So how will macroeconomic policies help us to improve industrial revolution or industrial output? I think we need to consider private sector should be encouraged from finances to availability of what government should do. And what should government do? Ensure that there is electricity or there is energy, whichever means we want to use to provide energy for industry. Because without energy, you cannot, there is no way you will be able to have a sustainable industry or industrial sector without having energy. Then policies around industrialization, importation, some of them need to be reviewed for us to encourage more people to get into industrial production. If not, we will still have huge unemployment. Most people want to get into service. You see a lot of people in real estate. Nothing is wrong with real estate, but you see a lot of people in other sector that when you look at it, it's not production. So we need a lot of people in manufacturing. And the truth is, not until we have 60% of our GDP component, 60% of our GDP component coming from manufacturing and processing, I'm afraid we might not see reduction in unemployment that will be significant and sustainable. We might not also see reduction in insecurity. Just watch this. When you travel from, for instance, Ibadan to Osun State, I think they are quite close. You see bush on the right and on the left. From Abuja to Kogi, which is Lokoja now, the capital, you see bush on the right and on the left. When people are kidnapped, where are they taken to? Either the right or the left. Meanwhile, we can convert most of those bushes right and left to agri zones where you can process, farm, process, and become end-to-end, and they sell to both markets in Abuja and Kogi. We only need a leader that will see that in the challenges, we can turn them to opportunities so that going forward, rather than looking at our challenges and our concerns, we'll be part of the solution and not the problem to be solved.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much for that. You mentioned jobs, but you said it's got to be skewed to manufacturing. What about agro-allied production in helping Nigeria resolve its increasing jobless market? What can it contribute?
Well, you cannot have sufficient manufacturing without agro-allied because agric is responsible for most of our inputs. So it's processing and manufacturing. You need to first get the agric sector settled, and you need to get it well. And this is what I've recommended for a lot of state governors, and I'm still recommending the same. You have huge population. I give you an instance, maybe I should use Ekiti State. The election has just been concluded in Ekiti. Now you have a lot. Ekiti's agro is agric, has a viable agric environment, even though people call the state a civil servant state. But in my own opinion, and in that of our organization, Ekiti can be well positioned, and this is applicable also to Osun and Ondo, to serve Lagos State. We also have Jos. We have a number of states within the North Central, the way we have in few other places, including Northeast and Northwest and different parts of Nigeria, that can serve a major zone, a major market like Abuja, like Port Harcourt, like Lagos. They can serve them. So you ask, what are people consuming in Lagos? Do I have competitive cost advantage in production, starting with farmers first? And the farming will not be with hoes and cutlass. If there are tools they need, government can put them in cooperative to ensure this is available. But that is not the end. It will not profit the state or the farmers if they are just producing raw things. How do we then encourage manufacturers or processors to come? When you do that, you are getting job from farming, you are getting the job to processing, and eventually to manufacturing. The job will be sustainable on one hand. On the second hand, you are going to have huge GDP within the state, and all the GDP's counted components at the subnational will be added up for the nation. And this will make Nigeria to become more sustainable. It will make revenue of government coming from taxes and charges to become more sustainable. Most states will not need to depend on federal government. We have a typical example in Lagos. And when you ask which part of Nigeria has the largest manufacturing or processing zone, you say Lagos, but there are no farming in Lagos. So Lagos don't have nearness to raw material, but it has nearness to markets. What happens to those that have nearness to raw material? These are things I think the chief executive of state should think about. While the state may not go into business directly, but the policies of subnational should be to encourage those that want to invest in the state should consider. Look at investment in the last 1 year. I'm talking of foreign direct investment. Where have they gone to? More than 60% in one state, Lagos. Others, Abuja. What happened to the remaining 35 states? They are sharing the remaining little portion. Port Harcourt, Oyo, Nasarawa, Kaduna, sharing. There are states that have not even received any foreign direct investment. Why? Because the foundation for receiving foreign direct investment has not been prepared by them. So for us to mop up 33.1% unemployment figure of about 70 million people that constitute our labor force, we need to do a lot more. And those that are underemployed, that's even a huge number. For us to reduce those significantly, we need to do a lot about agro-processing, very importantly, and more importantly, we need to do a lot about manufacturing.
Paul Alaje, senior economist, SPM professional, fantastic stuff, very, very informative. We thank you so much for sharing your insights on the agro-allied sector and how it can contribute to Nigeria's economy.